where did this dream to become a filmmaker start? Where did it all begin?
I guess it just started with me being a bit of a boffin with films. Really, I mean, I was obsessed by films when I was young. As a young person, I spent a lot of time in the house. I grew up in the countryside, so I mean, I was out playing sometimes, but most of the time I like to be in the house. And whenever I had the opportunity to watch films, I was doing it. I mean, I'm showing my age by saying that we didn't have a VCR when I was very young, and I think it was maybe about 11 or something before we got our first VCR. So that was a very exciting time. We used to just watch videos at my uncle's house and stuff. So that was, and then obviously at Christmas time, you got your Radio Times and you circled everything that you wanted to watch over Christmas. So just an obsession with film really got me started. I'm kind of a working class lad for Dundee area, so I didn't really know how to get into films. It was not something I ever thought was probably possible at that age. And then I joined a theatre group when I was 16 and started doing amateur dramatics. I thought I wanted to be an actor initially because all my favourite stuff had Robert De Niro in it. So I was kind of like, I thought I wanted to be an actor, but then I realised I had more of a passion for being behind the scenes actually. So started directing plays and doing lighting and doing sound for plays in this amateur dramatics club, which was Carnoustie Theatre Club, which was where I went to high school. And then my passion grew from there, and I just realised that I wanted to be a filmmaker. It took me a bit of time. I worked for 4 years after high school before I decided, right, I'm going to go and try this thing and see if it works out. So I went to college first in Dundee, and then I went to Stirling University. And then my first professional job was editing video highlights in London for football games. And then I won a scholarship to go to UCLA for a year and study master's filmmaking there. And then that was really where the journey started in all seriousness, So yeah, so I've made quite a few shorts up to this point. I've had a few features in development for a long time, but it's very difficult to get a feature made because obviously it needs a lot of money, a lot more resources. Struggling to get anything made. So I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to go and make a feature myself. I'm going to write a script that can be made for very little money. And I'm going to see if I can get some good actors attached to it, and I'm going to make it work.
So talk to us then about that new movie mindset for the people who haven't seen it and might be tempted to go up to. I believe they're showing it at the McRobert is next Wednesday.
Yeah.
What can people expect that are going, and what would you say to entice people to come and see it? What's this about?
So it's a film about our general lives, actually. I mean, which when you're working on a low budget, you've got to think realistically about what you can do. So, I mean, I've been making films for a long time now, and I feel like I'm at that level now where I have an understanding of what you need to do and what's available to you with the resources that you have. So, with my low budget, I realized that I had to write a film that could be made with available locations. So I used my own house. So most of the film takes place in my house. And it's about two people who live together and are, just trying to find their way through life, I guess. So it's, there's a lot of comedy in it. It's dramatic, and it's about a couple who have a dysfunctional relationship and, are trying to find their way through it. So yeah, a lot of it's stuff that I know about. A lot of it's just stories from friends, and a lot of it's made up. So but yeah, and it seems to be really touching people, the film. Like on our tour so far, a lot of people have said, oh, I could really relate to this, because it's a lot of what you've written is the stuff that you don't see in other films. It's the stuff that my life's actually about, So it's not a film that's designed to be escapist in any way. It's supposed to make you reflect on your own life. And particularly after lockdown, I think that we spent a lot of time in houses together, and so it's about all those little conversations that happen in between, and about how anxious we feel as people, and about the difficulties with the mental health problems that we have, and it's about all of that stuff. So, and I think the audience who are thinking about going to see it will certainly go along and relate to quite a lot of what's happening on the screen.
And how did it feel to see all that hard work rewarded at the Manchester Film Awards when you obviously won that award for the best. Was it British feature?
Best British feature at Manchester Film Festival. Yeah, I mean that was very cool because it was the first festival that we hit in the, so we knew that we would go the festival route because I made this film very much with the opinion of I'm going to make the film, I'm going to finish it, and then we'll take it out and see what happens with it. So we didn't have any sort of front loaded back end plan as such. We just knew we were going to take it to festivals and see what happens. So Manchester was the first festival that we got into, and then it won Best British Feature there. So it was very exciting, to be honest, to know that there are other people out there and judges who feel the same about the film as those of us who worked on it do.
And Martin Scorsese said something about the first time you see your rough cut of your film, or you're in the editing suite doing it all. He says you should feel physically sick when you see your first like rough cut of the movie with no music, the sound isn't really done. Did you have a similar reaction when you seen the first sort of like timelined? Was it scary?
No, I think that in the past I have, like with some of my other films that I've made, my shorts and stuff, I've often felt sick after I've seen the rushes cut together. I've been like, oh my God, this is not going to work. But I think with this one, I just knew that it just felt right. I wrote the screenplay, and there's the famous saying that there's the film you write, there's the film that you shoot, and then there's the film that you edit, and they'll never be the same. Each of those three stages will spit out something completely different. But I think it was so well planned, and I had such a clear vision for what I wanted with this, that the screenplay, the film, and the edit all came together, and what's left on screen is pretty much how I envisaged it from the start. So I didn't feel sick when I saw the rushes and stuff, because the performances from the actors in this film are just so on point that I knew when we were filming it, I thought we've got something special here. And the actors knew it as well at the time. They said, it just feels right what we're doing. And I think that comes across with the final product. It just really comes off the screen as something quite special, I think.
And when compare this to the shorts you've done, is it night and day, or were you surprised to maybe see how much of it is just shooting a feature is actually very similar to shooting a short, or is it very night and day in terms of how you go about it?
I think it's similar, and we shot this film in 11 days, which is a very short amount of time for a feature film. That's all we could afford, to be honest. So it was like shooting 3 or 4 shots back to back, and we treated it that way, and I kind of thought of it that way as well. I kind of went, right, when we go out to shoot this, I'm just obviously the length of time that you're filming, it's more tiring. The planning of it's got to be stricter because you don't shoot in sequence, so you've got to know your script very well, because and you and your actors need to know it better, because obviously there's more screen time, and you've got to know where you are in the story. That's the kind of more difficult part of shooting a feature, for sure. And so you've got to plan it extremely well, and we were planned like big time. So,
and I'm curious, everyone's writing process seems to be sort of unique in a way. What's yours like when you sit down and put pen to paper or fingers to keyboard?
Well, my method is I need time and space to do it. I think I find it very difficult to write if I've got other going on in my life, so I'm kind of like, sorry, am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, go for it. For it.
If I've got other stuff going on in my life, I find it quite difficult to concentrate. But what I like to do is I like to sort of just take time. I sometimes lie in bed longer than I should, thinking about what I'm going to write that day. And that sets me up. I work better sort of later in the day and towards the evening. So I like to build myself up just by thinking about, okay, what do I need to achieve today? What am I going to be writing about? And then what I normally do is I start writing, and then the following day I'll read over what I've wrote the previous day, I'll edit it, and then I'll start the next bit of pages. So I like to try and get maybe 5 pages a day done when I'm writing a screenplay, but it's not an exact science. Sometimes you go crazy and you write 20 pages in a day, but I do tend to find that the best stuff I write is when I sort of batter it all out very quickly. So I've done a lots of pre-prep, thinking about what the story is, what the structure is, and I know what my themes are going in. And then, yeah, so normally the faster I write, the better the product.
And you actually touched on something there that I've been reading up on, and it's people, the writers often say the biggest mistake people make is not knowing their theme before they go in to write a script. Would you agree with that? Do you think it's imperative to know what your theme is before?
I don't think it's imperative. I think that there are various different ways that people will write, and I always say there's more than one way to skin a cat. So it's up to the writer themselves. I work very much on the principle that I need to know what my themes are going in, because I create my characters out of theme. But then my theme then becomes secondary. So I treat it like a bullseye. I know that this is my bullseye. I know that this is where I'm going with this, and this is the story that I want to tell. And usually I write about things that annoy me about what's going on in the world. And so I've got very specific themes that tie into the things that I want to say about the world that we live in. And then I create characters who will allow me to tell that story. But then you've got to let the characters take over. I think after that, you've got to let them move in the directions that they would naturally move in, not losing sight of your theme. So, but other people work very differently. Other people work from the basis that they've got a concept that they want to write. I think that's a tricky place for me to start, because concept will only take you so far. It never gets fully fleshed out if you're just working with a concept. You're safer working from character if that's the other method, is that you work from your characters and you just let them take you through and you let them find the theme for you. So as I say, I don't think there's any one way to do it right. I prefer the knowing my theme before I go in. That's the way I work.
And I've got some just questions that I just want to know, your take on, who's your biggest inspiration then? When you mentioned De Niro earlier in terms of acting, but
De Niro was the reason I wanted to make films in the first place, because I was just so astounded by him as a performer. But having moved through, and I mean, I've seen so many films. I'm a real cinephile myself, so I take influence from lots of different places actually, and it depends on what project as well. So for this particular project, I was really influenced by the British 60s new wave stuff. So like Billy Liar's probably my favorite film from that period. But Saturday Night, Sunday Morning, and all those kind of films, Loneliness of a Long Distance Runner, all that stuff, because I knew I was writing what was essentially a kitchen sink drama. So I was really interested in that stuff, and I also like some of the comedy that comes through from those films as well, because I knew that I wanted to add comedy to this, so it's a comedy drama. But I'm also hugely influenced by John Cassavetes as a filmmaker, because he did a lot of low budget filmmaking himself that were focused purely on cast. And so yeah, I was really influenced, and I still am really influenced by him. But there's dozens of influences. John Schlesinger as a director, I really love his work. And Hal Ashby, I'm a big fan of his work as well. So there's a lot of directors that I've taken inspiration from.
What's that dream film? Because I feel like everyone has it. What's that dream film you'd love to write or direct, if it's like a book adaptation or something you've seen that you've been like, oh, I could do a really good job of adapting this, or I could do a better job of adapting this already established movie? Is there anything that you're desperate to make?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan on book adaptations generally, because I think that, I mean, I understand why they exist, because they've already got a pre-made market. If you've got a best-selling novel, that's the reason they continually turn those into movies. I did some interesting research as part of my PhD, and I found that between the year 2000 and the year 2010, of the top 200 films in the cinema, 30 of them were by British writers, and only one of those 30 was an original screenplay.
Wow, that's mad.
Yeah, so there's not, at that high end of cinema, box office cinema and tentpole kind of films, there's not a lot of original screenplays being written. It's mostly adaptation. So I think that some of them are based on comic books and some were based on novels and what have you. The only original screenplay by a British writer that made it into the top 200 in that 10-year period was Inception, by Chris Nolan and his brother. So, and they can do whatever they like because they've already got this kind of. So, but I'm out there fighting the fight for original screenplays because screenwriting is a real passion of mine, and like I like original stories for film. You know, that's not to say that I don't like adaptations, but anyway, getting back round to the question that you asked me was, I don't know if I necessarily have a film that I want to make other than the screenplays that I've got in development, so I've got, 3 or 4 screenplays that are also written, which are in development or ready to be made. And I think that my eye's very much on them at the moment, but that's not to say if someone came in and asked me to be a director for hire on a project, I would love to do that, providing that, providing it was a story that I thought I could do well and get my teeth into.
What's one piece of advice that you use every day now that you wish you could tell yourself when you were just starting out that maybe would have helped in your journey a little bit?
I wish I told myself to just go ahead and do it sooner, I think, because I waited. I foolishly thought that my opportunity would come. And it didn't. I made those opportunities for myself. So because I just decided I'm just going to go out and make a film. So
it's that easy.
And that's what, like, I would give that advice to everyone, is that if you want to make films, just make films. I know it sounds simple, but you can do it. It's not that difficult. You can make films with your mobile phone now, and it's like the difficulty is getting the craft right. It's not, we have access to it. It's easy to get editing facilities. It's easy to get a camera to shoot your film with. The more difficult thing is getting good actors, because good actors and good production design is ultimately what will sell it's what suspends people's disbelief. And that's the key, I think, to making a good film, is that you have to suspend your audience's disbelief. So that's the more tricky part. But once you have the craft, there's nothing stopping you from making something that's worthwhile.
Going back to what you just said about cast there, in terms of mindset, did you have a rough idea? Had you been in contact with your cast before, you finished the script, or was it script was done and then it went into cast, and then was it that block, or did you have anything in your mind that you were maybe wanting to choose?
Yeah, I mean, the 2 leads, Ailish Cahill and Steve Oram, I had them firmly in my brain while I was writing it. I thought these are the 2 actors. Basically what happened is I also run a film festival in Lincoln called Indie Links, and I invite guests to that all the time, and people come to it who are in films and stuff. So Ailish and Steve were both there one year at the same time, and we did a panel with them as actors, and they basically said on the panel that they really love it when a screenplay comes in to their agent, and the writer's like, I wrote this for you, or like, or something like that. So they like to know that everyone likes their ego fluffed, I guess. So it's kind of like, so I thought, right, I'm going to do that. I'm going to write a screenplay for the 2 of them, which is what I did. And then I wrote the screenplay and I finished it, because my feeling always is that not to let people see unfinished work, because it's not at its best. You should always keep your screenplay until it's finished. So I sent this finished draft to Ailish and Steve and said, would you be interested in playing these roles? And they both were. They both said, yeah, we'd love to do it. And Steve said, yeah, I'd love to do it. I've only got a week that I can give you. So we had him for 7 days in the summer when we shot it. And yeah. And both of them saying yes was basically what greenlit the project for me. I was like, right, well, now that they both want to do it, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, here we go. How important would you say it is to understand acting when you're a director in order to, direct your cast? How important is it?
You've got to understand what an actor needs, I think. I don't think you necessarily need to know all the ins and outs of like how an actor prepares and all that kind of thing, because that's their business ultimately. Film's a collaboration. I don't really like this whole a film by nonsense that we see on all the films that come out, because it's not a film by that person. I mean, my film as writer, producer, director, I've probably got as close to a film by as anyone else does, but it's still not. But it's still not a film by me. It's a film by. I'm part of the mechanism that makes it. It's a collaboration, and I never put that handle on any of my films, a film by, because I think it's nonsense, you know. So that color, and so to sort of get back to your question is, it's the same for all your crew and stuff. It's of course good if you've got knowledge in lots of different areas of what people are doing on your film, and as a director you should have a basic knowledge of what everyone is doing, but you don't have to have full knowledge on it, because that's why you hire a director of photography. It's why you hire actors to do the job, because they know better how to do their job than you do. So you've got to have trust, and you've got to choose the right people who are right for your project, and you've got to collaborate with them. And that's exactly how I approach working with actors, is you tell me what you need to make this work. And then occasionally, very occasionally as a director, you have to say, okay, so what you're doing as an actor is not really working for the whole. And that's when you start to have a conversation about it. And that's what it's all about, is having conversations. It's not about saying, this is what I need, and this is what I have to get from you, or can you please move 1 inch to the left because the camera is not set up quite right for where you're standing. I don't really work like that. If the actor chooses to stand in a particular place, they'll move the camera to suit where they're standing. You know, so.
I feel like it was Kubrick who was heavily criticized for that sort of like 1 inch to the left, kind of like I hear he was well, from obviously I don't hear it myself, but like in interviews and things I've heard that he was very particular when it came to that. And I guess, you know,
yeah, and he liked to do 80 takes, you know.
Yeah,
it's
and
just
then,
like that. That just blows my mind. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not criticizing Kubrick. As I said, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Everyone has their own method. Loads of different directors work in different ways. You know, so yeah, it's just whatever works for you as an individual. Everyone finds their style as they go through. And, you know, I'm certainly not a person who is ever interested in doing 80 takes. And you simply can't do it when you're working on a low budget anyway. So we were working on a ratio of 3 to 1, which is, you know, 3 takes for each bit that we're doing. Occasionally we went over, and occasionally on the second take we nailed it. So I'm just like, right, let's move on. It's not going to get any better than that. So
how long was the whole turnaround, would you say, from script to finished product? How long was the whole process, roughly?
Roughly 2 years.
Wow.
So we got held up a bit because we were editing it through the pandemic, so that slowed us down somewhat. But it didn't slow us down that much. I mean, I wrote the script in about 3 months. A couple of months later, we were shooting it, and then we shot it in 11 days, as I say, which is the shortest part of the whole thing. And then we edited it over about a year and a half. So yeah, and then there's the whole period of time after you finish it where you're waiting to get into festivals, waiting to find out what happens at these festivals, and then yeah, because we won Manchester Film Festival, I just decided, right, well, I'm going to do a UK film tour in cinemas myself. So I don't have a distributor. I'm self-distributing at the moment, and I just banged down doors of cinemas and said, look, you should be showing this because we won Manchester and it's good. And, you know, it's got Steve Oram and Eilish Cahill, who are brilliant, and it's got cameos with really good actors like Julia Deakin and Jason Isaacs. So it's kind of, you know, you should be showing this. And some of them agreed. And so we...
That's how you got to do it. There's no other way to do it. You just...
Yeah, I kind of wanted to see through the process myself rather than getting a distributor to distribute it in cinemas for me. I really wanted to see the process through because it's been that kind of film where it's been very much, you know, we've been doing it ourselves, and I wanted to do the same with the cinema release.
For sure. Is it a process you'd like to do for future films? Keep it, you know, nice and close to your chest and kind of walk it around?
No, I mean, I think that there's the danger that people might think that I'm a control freak, which is absolutely not the case. I'm not like that at all. I love handing my film over to other people to let them do what they do on it. It does mean that the creative decisions are mine. The film's still entirely owned by me. So I get to make all the decisions at the moment. But films, it's been proved in the past that some films benefit from the director not being in control of them. They get much better in the post-production phase when producers are saying, right, well, this is what we need to do with it. So that, as I say, like there's no one way of doing it. This is just the way that this film worked. I'd really like an opportunity to work in that other way next, where producers are coming in and saying, well, this is what we need from you, Mikey. And I see myself as quite versatile as a director, so I'm open to any challenges that come my way.
And when you finished it, the edit of Mindset, and it was all ready, who was the first person you showed it to, and what was the reaction, if you can remember?
I showed the rough cut to a group of sort of trusted colleagues. We went into a screening room, and I think there was about 10 of us in there, and I showed the rough cut to them, and got some feedback on it, so that we made some changes. I always kind of knew it was very rough, the rough cut, so I knew it was going to be tightened up. And then and really the first person you show it to ultimately is your editor, because they're the one who's working with you. And I had a really fine editor, Matt Owen, who's a good friend of mine as well. He's one of my ex-students actually, who just incredibly talented. We've made a couple of shorts together as well, so I knew that he would smash the edit, and I more or less left him to get on with it. And then so he's really the first person that sees it. But yeah, and then my partner, obviously, she gets an early look at it as well, because she's involved as a producer as well. So so quite a few people saw it actually. So
when can we expect to see another film? I know you said you've got a few things in development, but when can we expect a film by Mikey Murray?
You'll never get a film by Mikey Murray unless some producer or executive tells me I've got to put a film by at the front of my film. You'll never get that, because I don't agree with that principle. It's not like the notion of an auteur who stomps about with his hands on his head saying, this is not how I want it. That's just not how I work. I think that it's terribly, I don't know, pretentious to have a film by, I think, on any film. So you'll never see that. When the next project I'm involved with comes out, I don't know, because that's in the hands of other people. But I would certainly make another film with this method again, if I find that the second feature's not happening fast enough for me. I'll go and write another low budget one and do the same again, I think. But, because I just love making films. It's what I'm put on this earth for.